On this episode of Mythbusters,
The Widowmaker.
could you build a jetpack from plans on the internet?
I'm ready to go, man.
Adam and Jamie rise to the challenge of their toughest ever myth.
I want liftoff this time.
And the build team suffers for science in the myth of pyramid power.
Baby, give us a kiss.
Who are the Mythbusters?
Am I missing an eyebrow?
Adam Savage
I reject your reality and substitute my own.
and Jamie Hyneman.
Quack, damn you.
I wouldn't say Jamie's an evil genius.
Between them, more than 30 years special effects experience.
We're either gonna die or we're gonna fly.
They don't just tell the myths, they put them to the test.
Adam, we've got a really great story here. This is just the kind of thing that I love. This is a really difficult technical challenge. It's an engineering feat we've got to pull off here.
Absolutely. We have purchased some plans off the web that anybody could buy for under $100, and we're going to see if we can use those plans to build in our shop a personal, functional jetpack.
And of course, we only have, what, about $10,000 in a month?
Well, it wouldn't be Mythbusters without that kind of crunch, would it?
The quest to build a personal flying machine is as old as aviation itself.
It's my strong conviction that by utilizing these inner universal forces, we shall all be able to fly like the birds.
The Mythbusters are well qualified to join a procession of daredevil inventors hell-bent on avoiding traffic jams.
Step forward, lift your feet. Good.
The track record isn't exactly encouraging. So is the idea of a homemade jetpack just a dream?
So what are we going to build here exactly? What do the plans say our jetpack looks like?
Well, I don't see any jet engines anywhere on this thing. What I see is a gas engine goes in the middle of your back and a couple of propellers inside some ducts.
So it's more of a vertical takeoff helicopter ducted fan housing kind of thing.
Yeah, it's smaller than a helicopter. It's something you could carry around, but that's the gist of it.
But it ain't no jet.
No jet.
It's actually a backpack powered by a 60 horsepower engine which drives two ducted fans. The cowlings create lift and thrust, and according to the designers, should be able to carry a 200-pound pilot. The plans are less than comprehensive, so it's a case of join the dots and fill in the gaps.
That's a funky thing about these plans. You do whatever the hell you want, and you're going to be flying around like crazy. It's great. You'll go 50 miles an hour.
With limited time and budget, Adam and Jamie will need all the help they can get. So the Mythbusters support team swings into gear.
I have a question about the Rotax 503 engine.
Jamie talks to aviation experts about the components spec'd in the plans.
Do you know of anybody that has followed these plans then that has actually flown? Oh yeah, it'd be extremely dangerous.
Then he crunches some numbers and comes up with a verdict.
Well, I'm actually encouraged that based on the considerable poking around that I've done with all of the major components, it is theoretically possible that this could work.
Can you see Jamie like this?
To their knowledge, nobody has ever flown a jetpack like this one. So Adam and Jamie hit the road to find out about some that have got airborne. They're meeting Nino Amarino, an expert in rocket packs.
Wow. Is this a jetpack?
No, this actually, it's a rocket pack. This actually uses rocket fuel and rocket engines. The actual engine is on top, and these are the nozzles, one on each side.
Well, it seems like a pretty simple unit as far as that goes. I mean, I'm sure there's more than meets the eye here, but what's the biggest difficulty about actually making this practical?
Well, it looks simple at first sight, although there have been over 100 people that have tried, and all of them have failed.
The first attempts to build modern rocket packs began in the 1950s and met with about as much success as the efforts earlier in the century. But the possibility of airborne infantry was enough to attract military dollars. The breakthrough came in 1961 with a device designed by Wendell Moore of Bell Aerosystems. As the operating envelope was extended, the rocket pack reached altitudes of 60 feet and speeds of up to 60 miles per hour. But it was too noisy, so the military pulled the plug on the project.
Everybody seems to be working at some feverish pitch to develop a personal flying device, you know, that everyone could be flying. This is some sort of utopian dream. Why do you think that is?
Well, actually, the main reason why it is something that everybody wants to build is because of all the flying devices that man has built. This is the only one that the regular Joe on the streets has not been able to duplicate yet.
Well, I tell you, I can understand why this is such a seductive idea to people because, you know, it's like, okay, I'm ready to go to work, honey. I'll see you later, you know. You know.
When Jamie grows up, he wants to be a rocket man.
I've never seen Jamie so happy in my life.
Fired up by the rocket pack, Adam and Jamie hit the scrap yards to search out raw materials for their own flying machine.
Look at these. Oh my God, this is great. This is the average American's 6-month supply of soda pop.
The towers of twisted metal loosen some of Adam's screws.
Right, well, I mean, this piece behind me, I call it the APHIS 2. And, I mean, it's really about how confusing, you know, society is. Because, you know, it's all a jumble, isn't it?
In the world of scrap, Adam and Jamie are pin-ups, and they're mobbed by fellow enthusiasts.
So what are we building?
We're building a jetpack, personal jetpack.
Right.
Oh, we're either going to die or we're going to fly.
Well, let's hope you fly.
They're looking for aluminum, the plans recommended as light, tough, and perfect for aircraft.
Just machine a whole wing out of that.
It's funny what gets us excited, isn't it? I don't think I've ever seen a solid chunk of aluminum that big.
It's the second biggest piece of aluminum I've ever seen.
It just like gets me all worked up just looking at it.
After the obligatory drooling, the guys get down to the job at hand and come away happy shoppers.
You can't take Jamie and I to a place like this and have us just leave with what we came for. This big plate of 16th-inch aluminum is going to be most of the structure on the backpack. This angle iron's going to be some of the cross structure along with the arms for actually steering and controlling. It's all really fantastically useful stuff, and I love working with aluminum. I'm delirious from the sun. I love aluminum. Aluminum, I love you.
Myth number 2 comes from ancient Egypt and involves a magical mathematical formula. According to some, the pyramids incorporate a sacred geometry, which helped to preserve the mummified remains of the pharaohs. Furthermore, they claim that this mystical math can work modern miracles, like keep fruit fresh or razor blades sharp. Apparently, they can even reinvigorate an overworked Mythbuster.
You know, normally we try and stay away from some of the oogie boogie myths, but it's time to go attack pyramid power. It is reputed to do everything from keep your razors sharp to keeping your milk and fruit fresh. And I think you two are the perfect people to take this test and see what we can do with it.
Well, as a true scientist, you do have to walk in with an open mind, without any preconceived notions, and put it to a very rigorous testing.
You guys are going to have to build a whole bunch of pyramids in a very short period of time. All right, I'm going to go back to sleep.
Nighty night.
So, can the build team crack this cosmic code?
Where is that formula?
First, they must erect their own pyramids by following the instructions of New Age mythmongers.
That doesn't make sense.
It's all as clear as mud, so they decide to seek enlightenment from someone who walks the walk, true believer Jerry Tomlinson.
Okay, Jerry, so you're our self-proclaimed pyramid freak. We got lots of questions.
Okay. So you're totally convinced that there is power with these pyramids?
Oh, yeah. A guy in Czechoslovakia patented the Cheops razor blade sharpener. And he put razor blades under it, and they would dull razor blades, and they would be sharper, you know. And I tried it once. I was there for about a week and put it in. It seemed to be sharper.
Not that convincing, eh, Tori?
Do you think that the materials that the pyramid are made from have any effect on the experiment?
Well, copper is a real cool metal, but it's supposed to work. Yeah, maybe.
So I've
But oh no, excuse me. No. I've been told that that's not true because you can do it. Just the shape is maybe what you use has some effect, but I think it's primarily the shape.
The build team leaves Jerry a little older, but none the wiser.
Look, you guys, we just got our mail order pyramid.
Ooh. Is this the one that's supposed to sharpen razor blades?
This is the one.
Wait a minute.
I think we've been had.
How much did we pay for this?
$38. I think we're the suckers.
Back at the shop, there's been a delivery. But if it does keep fruit fresh and razors sharp, $38 is money well spent. While apparently the material doesn't affect the pyramid's power, the dimensions do. For maximum potency, the model must be an exact scale of Egypt's Golden Pyramid. And this one, well, looks a little wonky.
I mean, here's our pyramid. Do you feel any power? Come here.
Don't point it at me. Don't aim it at me.
Come here. Let's put it over your head. Do you feel lightheaded?
I'm reading your thoughts right now.
And Tori's thinking that pyramid power could be a long way off. Personal jetpacks are everybody's dream. But is it utopia? Or could Joe Soap really build one in his garage? The Mythbusters are going to find out. They're on the trail of an ultralight engine at California Power Systems.
What can I do for you guys?
Looking for a Rotex 503 dual carb. I understand you have one in stock.
Yep.
Could we have a look at it?
Sure, I can bring one out here.
This is the one spec'd in the plans, but Mike suggests a lighter and more powerful alternative, the water-cooled Rotex 583.
I can't see how this possibly couldn't push you off the ground. It has that much power.
Wow.
That's what we want.
That's what we want to hear.
It's not the exact engine specified in the plans, but it's close enough.
Any reasonable person with the dough would go for the Rotex 583. I mean, it's a lot more power for just about the same weight, actually a little bit less, and every pound counts here. In the trunk of this car is our chance for immortality.
That thing has about as much horsepower as this van does, and it's not going to be like strapping an automobile engine on your back.
Let's get back to the shop.
Let's make this sucker.
Back at M5, the build begins. And right from the get-go, Jamie's fired up.
This is exactly the kind of project that really motivates me personally. So I'm going to be losing some sleep over this one. Starting to look like an aircraft part.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go.
While Jamie works on the main structure of the backpack, Adam starts on the cowlings. Without them, the thrust generated by the propellers is dispersed. When the cowlings are added, the thrust is concentrated. They also create suction around their top edge, causing lift, like an airplane's wing. But the ducts only work if the clearance between propeller tips and cowling is less than 1/16 of an inch. According to the plans, the ducted fans should provide 500 pounds of thrust, more than enough to get Jamie airborne. Adam carefully cuts thin layers of roofing foam, which stack together igloo fashion to form the basic body of the cowling.
This appeals to both Jamie and I in a very sort of deep core level of interest for us. You know, it is exactly the kind of thing that, you know, once we did the research, we found out that no one's actually really flown one of these things that we can find. It would be amazing if we actually were able to build one to fly.
The cowling design seems solid enough, but Jamie's finding that the plans for the main body of the backpack have as many holes as the average tea bag.
There's stuff, the basic thing that's going on here is maybe not that wacky, but when I get into the details, it's like idiotic.
They call for the 90-pound engine to be bolted straight onto a wafer-thin aluminum sheet.
And this thing's just socked right in the middle of this 16th-inch sheet.
Yeah.
And the engine's on there.
A 62 horsepower engine.
Mounted on 16-inch aluminum. I'm not going to get near it with it operating.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to, there's no way in hell I'm going to get in this thing. I mean,
it's terrifying.
The guys have got mixed feelings about the plans, which are a cocktail of the good, the bad, and the downright ugly.
It's like frustrating and almost disgusting how poor these plans are, and yet the stuff that he's kind of coming up with isn't all that bad.
While at first glance they seem easily like the work of a crazy person, it all seems, I mean, sort of crazily plausible that it could fly, but again, the devil is in the details.
In the interests of safety, Jamie adds a plate to strengthen the engine mounts. Then he blocks out the basic structure of the backpack.
Well, it looks like it ought to make sense.
The propellers arrive, specially made by a hovercraft manufacturer.
Hard to imagine these two picking you up off the ground, huh? It's gonna be like, I think that's about what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, well, onward and upward.
Despite their misgivings, it's not necessarily a case of pigs might fly.
Based on the initial number crunching that I've done, this thing could actually fly. And, you know, the fact that we haven't actually seen anybody flying with it is sort of like, what's going on here? Are we gonna like be the first ones?
The build team is testing the myth that pyramids have strange powers of preservation. They'll build 4 scale models in which they'll place some milk, half an apple, half a razor, and half a flower. The other halves, the controls, will sit outside the pyramids. According to the myth, their models must have pyramid-perfect dimensions to ensure any cosmic power is cranked up to the max.
Hey, Tori, it is going to be a golden pyramid.
And apparently, for the sharpest razors and freshest fruit, the pyramids must align with magnetic north. The build team really is doing all they can to test this loopy legend.
Should we cut these flowers off, put one in and one out?
Actually, we're going to take one of the flowers and we're going to slice it in half.
Carrie slices a rose with a razor, while Tori goes overboard on an apple with a chop saw. It's a clean cut, perfect, with a dirty blade, hardly a laboratory dissection. Carrie also sets up the milk for the preservation test before moving on to something sharper.
I am dulling this razor so I can stick it into the pyramid and sharpen it.
The team places 1/2 of each item inside the pyramids, 1/3 of the way up. That's the location of the king's burial chamber in the real thing, and supposedly the locus of maximum power. Now, let the rotting commence. But first, another slightly more involved experiment.
Well, we're gonna get Tori all shaved up with a razor designated for each side of his face. And then we're gonna stick one of these inside the pyramid to see if possibly it gets sharper or gives him a cleaner shave on a daily basis.
So, for the next 2 weeks, Tori's going to be shaving for science.
All right, so I've shaven about the same on each side. They're about the same dullness, so we're gonna stick this one in the pyramid, this one outside of the pyramid, see if this one gets any sharper.
Like everything else, they're aligned to magnetic north and boosted in height. Now, the waiting begins.
For the sake of science,
yes.
Keep an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
St. Louis
It's 1 week into the jetpack assembly.
Can you crash?
Yeah, I'll show you.
Let's crash into that cliff.
No, we're gonna go for the balloon.
Adam and Jamie are paying a visit to the Hiller Aviation Museum to learn more about personal flying machines. And who better to guide them around than a man named after a compass?
My name is North, East, West, North, EAST, WEST, and I'm director at the gallery at the Hiller Aviation Museum.
So, like, what happened to South? This is the granddaddy of jetpacks, the Hiller platform, named after its inventor, Stanley Hiller, and funded by the Office of Naval Research.
Is this one of the earliest ducted fan designs?
This is the earliest ducted fan. This is the first ducted fan that ever lifted a man.
Really?
Yes.
The Hiller platform was more magic carpet than jetpack, with the pilot standing above a single large ducted fan. The inaugural flight took place in strict secrecy in January 1955. But when the military went public later that year, the whole world wanted one.
I'd love one of these at home.
Well, the development cost on this back in the early 50s was still about $500,000, so it's another reason we all have one sitting at home. But I think safety more than anything.
And we're going to build one for a couple grand.
Even though the platform flew, the military saw it as unsafe and abandoned the project. Only 7 vehicles were ever built, but the principle of ducted fan-powered flight was off the ground. This solo trek device, developed in the 1990s, looks almost familiar.
Jamie, we don't need to build one of these. We already found one.
Like their work in progress, the Solo Trek is powered by a pair of ducted fans driven by a gas engine.
It's amazing to see it here because, I mean, you can just see the hand-built aspect of it. You know, once you start to really see the parts up close, it's really apparent that humans built it. I love that aspect.
This prototype never flew, but with military backing, its offspring were more successful. A Hollywood version of the Solo Trek device flew into action in the movie Agent Cody Banks, but it only soared with the help of special effects. In reality, this sort of performance is a long way off. This is the real thing on its maiden flight in November 2003. It took 7 years and $10 million just to get this far. So where does that leave the home builder?
North, have you heard the myth or idea that you could actually buy plans, really simple plans actually, for something quite like the Solo Trek here and build it yourself?
I have a whole drawer full of them.
Really?
Yes.
Well, do you know of anybody that's actually followed through and built the things?
Not with a vehicle like this. I've never seen anything like this type of lifting vehicle except for the Solo Trek.
Adam and Jamie leave the museum with mixed emotions. They've learned that ducted fan devices can fly, but only just.
Bags.
The project hangs in the balance. The Mythbusters have just 3 weeks left to build a jetpack from plans purchased off the internet. But the more time passes, the less confident they are about getting airborne.
I'd say 15% chance of someone levitating in any way, which is actually pretty high. But again, the math is all there, it's all in the details. You know what, I'm gonna lower that. I'd say a 5% chance that someone flies. 80% chance that this thing makes a hell of a racket, and 15% chance that there's some horrible, horrible disaster with it.
Meanwhile, Christmas has come early for Jamie.
Well, this is a great little engine, but we had a fan offer us another engine that's a little lighter, and yet it has the same power. I'm all about having a lighter engine, and so we're going to return this.
Jamie's also decided that he needs to make a major change to the plans.
Having been to the Hiller Aviation Museum, there's one consistent theme that keeps coming up, and that is that these devices have stability problems. And short of doing something really complicated and expensive, an idea that I had was to move the engine down low.
By lowering the engine and elongating the backpack, Jamie hopes to gain extra stability, if he can get airborne. He can't afford a gyro stabilizer, but focusing the weight lower down is the next best thing. Despite the new engine, the new design means a heavier machine, but Jamie doesn't seem concerned.
It's gonna be fun.
Day 10, and Adam checks his cowlings, which he's left to set overnight.
There we go. One cowling. I'm quite pleased with it. This thing's gonna be mounted one here and one here. I'm ready to go, man.
He's built a turntable so he can lathe the foam cowlings into a ducted fan shape with maximum precision.
So it actually seems to work okay. It leads me to understand that there's a lot of work to do to finish this.
Several hours later, Adam's feeling down. You know, blue.
This is awful. The hard part about doing two is that once you finish one, you're only halfway there.
Each cowling takes Adam 8 hours of solid sanding and shaping. The clock is ticking, but on balance, he's pleased.
All told, Any average Joe could do this in their shop for about, like, you know, 75 bucks worth of material. And that's kind of the myth we're testing here. You know, can your average Joe do this?
Jamie's been making good progress on his backpack extension. He's lowered the engine and fitted the elongated drive shaft.
Perfect.
Right on cue, the Jetpack's drive system arrives.
What we have here are the pulleys that will be mounted onto each propeller. This would be a drive belt, and each propeller has one of these that goes from its hub to the central hub on the engine, and this would be the central hub.
While Jamie installs the power transmission,
early go-go dancing training.
Adam is psyching himself up for the next stage of cowling construction, vacuum bagging.
I'm actually a bit nervous.
It's an aeronautical fiberglassing technique designed to provide maximum strength with minimum weight. First, a layer of Kevlar. It's the material used in bulletproof vests.
It won't add much weight, but it'll add a lot of strength in case of a catastrophic failure.
He covers the entire foam cowling with strips of carbon fiber, which he coats in resin.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I'm very pleased.
Then a layer of peel ply.
My back is killing me, though. It's like a real workout noise. Moving around, bending over, turning around, doing this.
Finally, absorbent cloth to soak up the excess resin.
God, I hope this works.
The bag is placed around the cowling, and Adam connects the vacuum pump. The pressure squeezes the resin into any air pockets, providing pound for pound the strongest possible finish. And finally, the pièce de résistance, an impromptu oven in the form of an electric blanket.
And that's how you do it.
Adam leaves the cowling to bake overnight and heads back to the backpack where Jamie's ready for a balance test.
I think we're ready to see how it hangs.
All right.
Can these be cinched up tighter? I need them like...
I'm uncomfortable with all this contact with your groin. Contact.
Lowering the engine seems to have paid off.
It actually kind of came out like I'd hoped. The engine is balancing off the body weight in the front, the way that it's all kind of configured, which is honestly not too far different than what the original plans were.
All right, so you guys ready for a break? Let's go.
All right. Catch you later, Jim.
Bye, Jimmy. See you around.
Adam splits to unwrap his cowlings, and he seems, well, pleased.
Oh, that outside edge looks pretty good. Oh, I'm really pleased about this. You know what, Jamie?
What?
I'm kind of pleased.
Yep, he's pleased.
I am psyched.
A final layer of epoxy gives a pleasing finish.
I'm pretty bloody pleased with how smooth it is. I slept in them last night, so I might look a little pleased.
There's just 10 days left, but when the first cowling goes on, so does the light at the end of the tunnel.
Hold on, I want to stand back and look at this. God damn.
Honey, I'm home.
Just in time for some important visitors. Inspectors from the Federal Aviation Authority, the FAA.
Thanks for coming down, guys.
They're here on official duty to classify the jetpack. Unofficially, they're just plain curious.
So what do you guys think? How airworthy does it look to you?
It's like no aircraft I've ever seen.
Would you guys fly?
Absolutely not.
No. You know, although we haven't been able to get them on the phone, do you have a message for the guys who sell these plans?
I'm just concerned for your safety. Really, if you were going to actually fly this around, just because it's so unproven.
That's the bad news. The good news is that the jetpack gets an ultralight classification, which means a green light for an unregulated test flight.
The verdict was great. This loophole occurs where if it's under a certain weight, you can strap whatever you want to your back and fly it as long as you fly it out of their airspace that they care about, and as long as you don't hurt any other people.
The final week of construction is a mad rush to finish on time.
What a racket!
The cowlings are secured in place, and directional vanes are attached. Jamie makes another change to the plans by adding reinforcement struts to support the ducted fans. Finally, he installs the armrests, joysticks, and throttle control. As the clock runs down, the stress levels go up.
This is the expression I'm going to keep on making during this. Like that.
Exactly 4 weeks after they started the build, they roll out the Jetpack to the test site at the front of the shop.
Damn, this is a sexy machine.
It's been a month of moving mountains. Have the Mythbusters pulled off a miracle of amateur aeronautics? Or is this Jetpack a dead duck?
You know, we've been working on so many parts of this for a combined total of 4 weeks now. It's the longest build we've ever done on Mythbusters. And I'm really, really psyched to see it go. I'm a little scared, but mostly I'm completely psyched. I mean, even if this thing's a miserable failure, I'm tickled pink.
The build team are testing whether pyramids have mystical powers. Can they really keep fruit fresh and razors sharp? While they wait for things to rot or not, Tori's off to the barber's.
Oh, this is not cool.
Do you think it's me or the razor?
I don't know.
Okay, I think we're done on that side.
Pyramid side done, but the torture continues with the control. So, was there a difference?
The left side definitely felt duller
Really?
than the right side. I'm just glad this whole experience is over.
The left side was duller? Well, maybe there is something to pyramid power after all. Let's check up on the rest.
Something about rotting milk and rotting apple that just grosses me out.
The milk's turning to cheese, but that's not all that's happening.
The apple in this one is actually rotting at a slower rate than that one.
I know. Feel the power, man.
I don't know. I'm so bummed. This Oogie Boogie stuff is actually working.
Like it or not, the apples are rotting at different rates. Is this pyramid power at work, or has the apple experiment gone pear-shaped? Time to consult an Egyptologist.
What do you know about the power of the pyramid?
Well, the myth is that the shape itself was part of the process of preserving the body of the king. And by extension, I suppose there are people who think that it preserves just about anything placed inside of it. As far as I know, in ancient Egyptian thinking, there's no evidence that they thought about that at all.
Could the mummy's curse spell the end for pyramid power? Dr. Manning reckons that it's mummification that preserved the bodies of Egyptian kings, not the shape at all. So how's the apple getting on?
Well, it's been 15 days.
This one is definitely rotting at a slower rate than this one.
The pyramid apple defies logic. It's kept its color, its shape, and it's mold-free.
Flowers seem to be doing the same thing. They're both dried out. There's no real difference. I don't see any difference.
And how about the milk?
Oh my God! There's like little critters. There's little critters crawling around in there. Yeah.
Is there any in those?
Yeah, they're little maggots.
Milk maggots are Mother Nature's use-by date, but razor blades can be tested with technology.
We've brought our razor blades here to the California Academy of Sciences to see if we can put them under the electron microscope, see if the pyramid has had any effect on them. Hi, Scott.
Hi.
Carrie, I'm with the Mythbusters.
Glad to meet you.
Scott's a guru of the electron microscope. First, the control razor at 2,500 times magnification.
It's just hard to believe that this little forest right here is the edge of a razor blade.
The roughness means the razor's edge is blunt. So what about the pyramid razor?
They look pretty much identical to me.
Side by side, photos show how similar they are. At 3 magnifications, they're almost identical. And they're both different from a brand new blade. So pyramid power sharpening seems pretty ineffectual. Would Tori agree?
All right, so this is day 16, the last day of our experiment.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
First up, the control razor.
Ow. This is not very sharp at all.
It's actually kind of hard to watch.
It's as blunt as a bowl of pudding.
You want to go for the pyramid?
Yeah, hopefully that will be sharp.
I hope for your sake pyramid power works.
Why? I thought you enjoyed seeing me in pain.
Of course not. How's that feel?
This is like no better than the other one. It's just as dull. It's like pulling hairs out of my face. It sucks. This thing is not sharp at all. I need a real razor.
Tori exits for medical help.
Oh man, I'm sure glad that this myth is over.
Dude, are you all right?
Well, does it look like I'm all right? I would have to say that this part of the myth is totally busted.
I think your face is busted.
But his mojo's still working.
Baby, give us a kiss. You don't find me hot like this?
You look like hell.
The Mythbusters' quest to build a flying jetpack has taken them to Davis, California, home of the Muller Sky Car.
Oh man, I have to have one of these. Look, they can fit my kids in here too.
Dr. Paul Muller has spent half a century and $200 million trying to develop a flying car. According to Muller, this is the future.
Is this something that I'd be able to purchase eventually and, like, you know, fly it in San Francisco to my job?
Well, I believe, as Dr. Daniel Golden, the ex-head of NASA, that this vehicle will be in the hands of 25% of the population within 10 years. And he said, he went on further and he said be within 90% of the population within 25 years.
If he's right, it won't be long before we're flying to work, like George Jetson. For decades, inventors have been promising air vehicles, but the hard fact is, they're still science fiction.
What do you think? Is this all a hoax or what?
No, I think this is cool. We need these things. Unless we want to pave the whole planet, you know, and put roads everywhere, it's like the highways are getting too full. Yeah. What else are you going to do?
Build your own jetpack, of course. In just 1 month, Adam and Jamie have built their own from plans purchased on the internet. Now, the moment of truth has arrived.
I'd give this device about a 25% chance of actually working reasonably well. The other 75% chance, I would say, is catastrophic failure. And there is a 100% chance that I am not going to be flying around untethered on this thing.
The jetpack remains potentially deadly, so Buster steps up to the plate. Meanwhile, Adam's having an attack of the clear light of days.
I don't know what illusions Jamie might be under. I've been pretty clear all along that this thing has a very, very tiny chance of actually functioning. I give it 10% that it actually is. 10% I'm being really generous. Let's say 2% that it's a viable flying machine.
So the clever money's on gravity. With catastrophic failure always an option on Mythbusters, the guys take the usual precautions.
Now it's time to see if Buster can actually rise up in this thing. This is the first official flying test of the Widowmaker. All right, start it up when you're ready, Jimmy.
Okay, go ahead.
Buster's wife should be checking his life insurance right about now.
Just going to spin up probably to about 4,500 RPM, and Jamie's just checking the system out, seeing if anything's abnormally hot.
Everything looks cool, so Jamie opens the throttle. It's all systems go. Countdown begins. The Widowmaker dances on the launch pad. A tantalizing sign of lift, but takeoff is aborted. Jamie thinks the fuel mixture may be too rich.
I'm getting, my eyes are really stinging and we weren't reaching full RPM. I think there's a throttle high-speed throttle needle on it.
Okay.
Adjustment.
The engine is not reaching its power band, so they do some fine-tuning, adjust the throttle cable, and prime the carburetors for another shot at immortality. The power of ancient Egypt. The build team have been trying to harness the mystical force of the pyramids and have unearthed a bit of a surprise.
All right, guys, you've been testing for a couple of weeks now. I want to ask you about how some of these tests did. The milk.
Busted.
Let's see, the razor blade.
That was busted.
And the flour.
Busted. You
Okay.
couldn't tell any difference.
The apple.
Well, there was a little difference.
Really?
It seemed that the one inside the pyramid rotted at a much slower rate.
There's no getting away from it. The pyramid apple isn't exactly crisp and juicy, but it's not as shriveled as the control. But there may be a non-mystical explanation. Tori forgot to sterilize the blade of the chop saw when he split the apple, and may have given the two halves different microbial loads. So there's got to be one last test, this time with whole apples to avoid contamination. They're polished with bleach, then put under a UV light, a WMD for microbes. And in a fit of geometrical enthusiasm, they decide to test cube power too.
If there's anything to pyramid power, this should be the setup. We'll find out.
With everything pointing north, the apples are left to sit for 4 months. Time to put this pyramid puzzle to bed.
Okay, that's pyramid. This is the control. That's nothing. And this is cube. Well, it's obvious that cube power is really bad for you.
But what about the other two?
I'm just gonna take some representative samples. Pyramid, regular. I'm looking at the one in the pyramid, I'm looking at the one out in open air, and I don't see any appreciable difference.
I'd agree.
So I think that's myth busted.
Can we call this myth busted, please? And can we not do any more of these Oogie Boogie myths?
Back at the launch pad, Adam and Jamie have retuned the Jetpacks engine. And it's time for a second bite at the levitation cherry.
Here goes. I want lift off this time.
Round 2. This time, the engine hits the butter zone. Jamie's whiskers are twitching. The tachometer reaches 5,600 RPM. Gravity's got a fight on its hands. The jetpack leaves the ground. It's almost flying. But gravity wins out. Close, but no cigar.
It's getting to the borderline.
Right there. Yeah, no, I can tell. It's right there. We've got 5,600 RPM on that last one. We are at the power band. We are at the maximum output of this engine. We have too much weight. As far as the overall design, everything is functioning as it should, except the entire machine. The engine is performing beautifully. It's all functioning. It's just, at this point, we're just too heavy.
According to Jamie, weight is not the main issue. It's thrust.
We were given to understand we would get 500 pounds of thrust. This thing does not weigh 500 pounds. Why is it not getting off the ground? There's some kind of a thing with, the only place that I can point to is something to do with the efficiency of the ducts.
They attempt to maximize thrust by adding a layer of balsa between the propeller tips and the cowlings. The smaller the gap, the larger the thrust.
Oh, did you see that? Was that sexy or what?
A thread test confirms that the airflow into the ducts is smooth and uniform. So they should be getting the correct thrust and lift.
Perfect!
But even with the modifications, the guys decide to lower the bar.
Keep your comments to yourself.
And remove Buster from the hot seat.
Okay.
Take that!
It's a retreat, but Jamie's philosophical.
This is an ambitious project, after all. You know, this is something that I keep saying, like, somebody out there is spending tens of millions of dollars and decades of work developing a device like this.
With Buster out of the picture, the Jetpack is 190 pounds lighter. It's now or never.
All right, are you ready?
I think we're ready. Okay, go ahead.
Test number 3.
Chalks away, but will it be liftoff? It's trying, but it ain't flying. The game's finally up.
It's not even providing all that much lift on its own. If it was correctly balanced, it would be flying on it without anything on it, but not with a whole lot of access.
In other words, without a pilot. Even so, Jamie can't resist having a go in the Widowmaker. Mrs. Hyneman, you should look away now.
I have a sneaking feeling this is going to, like, not exactly tickle in a certain unmentionable region, but it's going to be vibrating like crazy down there. What the hell are you writing out there?
Pilot to Bombardier, do you read? Over. Are you good?
Yeah.
Looks like Jamie's going to be driving to work for a while yet.
How did that feel, man?
Well, the main thing that it feels like is that I'm in some kind of a mixer or something. I mean, it's like your whole body is just like at a really high frequency vibration here. It's just that alone is enough to make me not want to fly around in this. I mean, it really is ridiculous.
Seeing Jamie in the machine is just amazing. He really does, you know, with the mustache, end up looking like one of those turn-of-the-century guys in the huge flying machine that goes off the ramp and off the cliff.
And unfortunately, he's met with about as much success as those magnificent men in their flying machines.
We're both exhausted of this project. I believe, I'm personally exhausted of this project.
We've done all due diligence on making this thing work based on the information we've had, but it's nowhere in the ballpark. And I don't get it. I'm mystified.
So how did we do?
Well, we didn't get off the ground, so I guess we failed, as much as I hate to admit it.
But we succeeded, I think, in busting a myth.
Yeah, there's no way that the average Joe could take those plans and get off the ground with them. They were incredibly sparse. There wasn't enough data. There weren't enough details.
They were drawn on cocktail napkins.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
What do you think? Do you think at some point in the future we will be flying personal jetpacks to work?
I don't think so. There's one really important thing to keep in mind about this type of device, and that is that you have no backup. If you have a failure, you're going down like a stone. You're going to die. And for that reason, I don't think that you're going to be riding around in a personal jetpack anytime in the near future at all.
So, myth totally busted.
Yeah, totally busted.